Hi, everybody. I'm Yuzo, CEO of bitFlyer. It's very honored to be here and invited as a keynote speech. I'm going to explain about bitFlyer and the blockchain, our original blockchain, and ICO. I hope this event is not the solicitation of the ICO because there are some regulators actually coming, I think. So I'm going to actually mainly explain about the Japanese legislations. So when I actually talk about the regulations, it's only for the Japan. First of actually, I'm the chairman of Japan Blockchain Association, as well actually the founder of bitFlyer. I've been working with the regulators to establish the virtual currencies laws in Japan. That's been actually enacted last April. Since then, there are many actually exchanges applied for the license. At this moment, actually 16 exchanges got the official license, including the bitFlyer, and another 16 are allowed to operate with a license just because they've been actually working before the laws actually acted. The rumor tells that there are actually more than 170 actually companies queuing for the license at this moment. So that takes maybe more than a year. The bitFlyer is the world's most compliant exchange. We are the only exchange that got the license in Japan, US, and Europe. It took a while to get the license in the, especially US. The most difficult one was the bit license in New York State. There only actually 4 exchanges got the license. And the Europe is, we got the license in the Luxembourg. We are the second. We have the more than 2 million users and the 9.5 trillion yen monthly volume, which is about 100 billion US dollars per month. We got raised 4.1 billion yen of the capital. We are very unique. We actually has been doing the blockchain and the virtual currencies exchange at the same time. If you look at the logo of the bitFlyer, you see actually 5 boxes and 1 circle. The circle in the center describes the virtual currencies like a Bitcoin. And the boxes, that's the blocks. Obviously, it describes the blockchain. So since actually 2014, we've been operating both the blockchain and the exchange. And then I founded the company in 2014 with the co-founder. We decided to actually go with both because both of the technology could be larger in the near future. And I mean, it is now. We are the biggest exchange in terms of trading volume. We occupy around actually 20% of daily volume of the Bitcoin. Basically, this including the margin trading. Also, actually, more than 80% of the market share in Japan. Most of the Japanese exchanges provided margin trading, which is actually leverage trading. Maybe actually 5 times to 15 times. And then some exchanges operate in the 100 times leverages. As you know, actually, it's growing rapidly. I started in the year 2014. I actually knew Bitcoin 2010. It was nothing, actually. It's just a toy money. It was trading in the dollar or even less. And then when I actually first saw the console of the Bitcoin, as you know, it's Bitcoin Core. It's just a number. My friend actually showed me the screen. Do you know Bitcoin? No, I don't. And this is Bitcoin. No, this is just a number. No, you just type the number and showing me, you know, the black screen in the console. You just show me the number. So why this has a value? No, this is money. No, it's not. This is funny, but I mean, 2010 to 2013, nothing happened. It was trading below $1 or maybe around $1. And then in 2013, there was actually a huge event, the Keynote shock. People actually bought a Bitcoin instead of actually euro. So that's actually the biggest event for me. Oh my gosh, the Bitcoin actually became like more than the $50, well, reaching to $100. It's a bubble. People actually telling that it's a bubble. And in 2014, people say it's a bubble. And nowadays, people say it's a bubble. So it's a bubble all the time. The blockchain, there was actually biggest event in the 2015. The R3 CEV, that's the largest actually consortium established. And then people actually got into the blockchain as well. A lot of actually major enterprises like banks, they don't really care about virtual currencies because it's fishy. But blockchain is a technology that might be actually useful. That's the reason why people got into the blockchain technology. And then nowadays, the people actually focusing on the virtual currencies and the people focusing on the blockchain are kind of split. Next page. What is blockchain? It's going to be a little bit technical. So Japan Blockchain Association had a huge discussion for 2 months to define what is blockchain and what is DLT. The blockchain definition is a little bit complicated. A blockchain takes a Byzantine fault into consideration and uses a large number of the nodes to form a consensus. As time progresses, the possibility of the consensus can be overtuned approaches 0%, and then the consensus is bound. Nobody understands what is this. Usually, the definition of the blockchain is varied by the people. But at least, the blocks has to be exist. And the number of the transaction chain has to be exist. Usually, this is very unique technology. So this is very different from the traditional databases like relational database like Oracle. That's why it has an immutability that can be, you cannot override the data. So all the data is connected from the beginning. In the Bitcoin, from the Genesis block to the block now, the highest block, it continues forever. So if you actually modify any data in one block, the rest of the data in the blocks could be actually changed. That's why it's tampered. It can be tampered. I'm also actually a member of the ISO, International Organization for the Standardization. And there's actually a technical committee named the TC307. People discussing the definition of the blockchain and the DLT. Probably it's going to take more than 2 years because there are a lot of countries actually discussing with, and then some definition could be different. Some are actually position talking. So I hope the conclusion is not something similar to the current technology, but something very new, which actually could change the world. My point for the blockchain is immutability and the BFT, Byzantine fault tolerance. It's very new, unique technology. Practical solution for the Byzantine fault. The Byzantine fault tolerance is very unique technology. If there's actually dishonest node, it's telling the incorrect information to the others. Still, you can detect. For example, there are more than actually 8,000 nodes exist in the Bitcoin's blockchain. And there are actually some dishonest nodes, obviously. Some actually telling a lie, meaning telling incorrect information to the other nodes. For example, I have 100 Bitcoins, but you can overwrite to 1,000 Bitcoins and try to actually send to the others. As you know, this could be rejected because it doesn't match to the other nodes. And then theoretically, mathematically, the less than 1/3 of nodes, even less than 1/3 of nodes are getting hacked you can still come up with the right information with the rest of the nodes. And then there are actually major blockchain, public blockchain, and the private blockchain. Like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoins, those are considered the public blockchain. You can join anytime. But unfortunately, those actually blockchain doesn't have finality. So finality is a function to determine or finalize the data. That's why you have to wait for more than 1 hour or 6 confirmations for the Bitcoin's blockchain. You have to wait for a certain time. For example, Ethereum actually, the block generation time is much quicker, but it doesn't make sense. You have to wait for a certain time because it could be reverted. So in the bitFlyer, we waited for the 6 confirmations for the Bitcoin's blockchain, but we wait for the 300 confirmations for the Ethereum because it's not equal. For the private blockchain, you don't have to wait because usually it has a finality, meaning that you can finalize a transaction within few seconds. Because block never split. That's actually a different consensus algorithm. Usually, the private blockchain applies like a PBFT, Raft, Tendermint. Those are actually consensus algorithm. And then public blockchain, it's a proof of work, proof of stake, proof of burn, proof of importance. There doesn't have any finality. So the usage for the private and the public are different. The actually huge market. It's the Gartner actually says it's more than 300 trillion yen worth market in the blockchain. It's about 3 trillion US dollars. It's huge. And the METI, Japanese government, says it's a 67 trillion yen market. It's still big. It's not only for the digital currencies, but there are actually many use cases in the blockchain because it's a new database. It's not only for use for the currencies, but the traceability and the proof of documents. And there's a lot of actually use cases, not only for the financial institutions, but the properties. The other actually use cases are written here. This is a little bit complicated. I categorize the blockchain inside of a database. So if you look at the database, it's a general database. It's usually, if you see Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, like Postgres, MySQL, those are considered a database. This is called like a relational database. But if you think Excel, it could be actually database. You can record the data, and then you can get the data somehow. So Excel could be one of the database. And there are actually several types of the usual database. Key value, like a Redis cache, object-oriented, and the graph-oriented. But I think more than actually 90% of use cases, people actually use the relational databases. You can join the table. You have the key. You can set a lot of keys. You can get. It's really convenient, and it's very fast. You have distributed databases, like Apache Cassandra. You can distribute the database into the several computers. This case, you have the master and the slave. So there are actually some master database which controls the rest of the database, meaning that you have a single point of failure. If the master database is broken, the rest of the data is broken. But all the data is distributed. Some distributed database doesn't have the single point failure, but it's copying each other. but still doesn't have the consensus algorithm. So now, if you add immutability to the distributed databases, it could be DLT, distributed ledger technology, like a R3 coder. Immutability is a function that you cannot delete the data or update at all because you have the chain of the transaction. So now it's really actually more secure. So it's going to the blockchain, but now the biggest part is the BFT. So you have to add the BFT that you need to detect the dishonesty node. So each node are talking to each other each moment and eliminate the dishonest node and come up with the right information. This is really, really unique and interesting. And as I said, they're actually with the finality and the no finality. This is a big concern for the financial institutions. Financial institution doesn't like the blockchain which doesn't have the finality at all. Why? Because of course, if you receive $1 million and a minute later, it will disappear. You cannot trust that kind of database. That's the reason why the financial institutions only use the blockchain which has a finality. This is a different actually structure. I split it into the several layers, like a network model. So as you know, you don't really care the on-premises or cloud services because you can run the blockchain on your whatever actually environment which has the virtual machines. Usually it's running on your Linux, but you don't really care the lower network, right? Lower layer of your system. I actually split into two major functions. The blockchain platform and the application blockchain, those actually mixed. There are more than 800 startups for the blockchain in the world, but most of them actually developing the application on the blockchain, usually using the Ethereum or the Bitcoin or the Hyperledger. But Hyperledger and our blockchain like Miyabi, a blockchain platform, we are not really actually developing the application for the blockchain. We do some, but mainly actually focusing on the platform to pursue the fastest and the most secured. And I split into the two different models for the blockchain platform, UTXO type and the state type. The Bitcoin has a UTXO type, meaning you have input and output, and you have state machines. And Ethereum has a state type. So those actually, the structures are very different. And the Miyabi is a state type. And it has actually pro cons. And then tokens or virtual currencies, ICOs, are on the platform, or you can write as a smart contract. Those are actually different. But if you look at the bottom of the orange, the consensus algorithm, the crypto components, and the persistency units, you have to have those three to be a blockchain. What is persistence unit? Is to record the data into the database. For example, blockchain, a Bitcoin's blockchain uses the level DV. So Bitcoin is considered a sort of a blockchain and a database, but it also has a database inside. Usually people don't really realize it, but it also has a database inside. You don't really care what database actually are used for the blockchain. So introduction for Miyabi. Miyabi is our original blockchain. It's a private blockchain, it's not public, so only the limited user can join to the Miyabi blockchain. We actually had a huge POC with the three major banks, Mitsubishi, SMBC, and Mizuho. In 2016, at that time, people considered blockchain is really interesting, it's very secure, but it's very slow. The Bitcoin's blockchain can only transact 6 to 7 transactions per second, which is too slow for the financial institutions. So the goal for them to make it faster and faster. And then they recognized, okay, there's a possibility that you can make it faster, and you can apply the blockchain to the financial institutions as well. We actually called the MIABI the largest, world largest, fastest performance with finality and the BFT. There are actually some blockchain which is faster than the MIABI, but usually it doesn't have the finality. So the maximum transaction is a 6,000 transactions per second, which is good enough to transact most of the use cases. And it can also actually execute the smart contract with an execution engine called Wari. So MIABI has a smart contract, and it's very fast, and with finality and with BFT. So it's a full functional blockchain. And then we also actually got nominated as a partner vendor with the Japan Bankers Association, as well as Fujitsu, Hitachi, and NTT Data. So we are the only startup who's got nominated to the banking network POCs. So the Japanese, actually, the banking and the financial institutions are very keen to get into the blockchain technology, including the Bank of Japan and the Japanese government agencies. So this is finance. What is ICO? So ICO usually has two major definitions. ICO is considered raising the capital, like a pre-sale, where you issue a token and receive something, usually Bitcoin or Ethereum. So raising the capital as an ICO, or you actually already issued the coin or tokens and get listed in an exchange. This is also actually called an ICO. But this time, I'm going to say raising the capital or raising money with issuing the tokens should be actually called a broad and wide of ICO. I see the first ICO in 2015. The Overstock tried to actually raise the capital of probably $2.5 million worth of the capital with tokens. That was actually first ICO. Or maybe Ripple. Some people actually say the Ripple is the first ICO. They're raising the capital by issuing the XRP. So in the definition of the ICO, this could be the first ICO and the largest ICOs. At that time, in the 2015, people didn't think this is that important. Because why do they actually raise the capital? They should have issued the equity. A lot of people think so. They tried, and they raised. And the Ethereum was at the, do you remember the pre-sale of the Ethereum? People don't care. They don't care at all. What is Ethereum? And why do you need to pay for it? And it got actually close to 100 times nowadays. Who actually bought the Ethereum in the pre-sale? Maybe some people. Could you? You're the richest guy. Yeah, only one or two people in 400 people. So, I mean, it's really difficult to tell which coin is going up or down. For example, a lot of people say that, oh my gosh, why didn't you buy Bitcoin in 2013? People didn't care. Seriously, it's just a random number. So look at the graph. Now, ICO is way bigger than the VC. It's venture capital. It's huge. It's really difficult to raise the capital through the venture capital. bitFlyer actually has them 6 or 7 times. You have to do the due diligence. You have to issue an equity or converts. And you have a lot of actually documentation. You have a lot of actually pitches. I went to the Silicon Valley and they reject, do the pitches. You have to do a lot of things, but ICO is so easy. That's the reason why people actually prefer to ICOs. Seems like there's also no benefit to do the raising the capital by the equity. ICO is easier, and no due diligence, and then you don't need to shave your share, no control. It seems like it's a heaven. So now it's a 3.2 billion. It's 3.2 billion. It's maybe probably this is not including the latest actually Telegram ICOs, which is 1.7 billion. It's much larger than the venture capital. What's going on venture capital there? But there are actually some problems. Obviously, there's not so easy money. Large-scale global ICOs. It was actually Filecoins, but now it's, sorry, I can't really read it. But the largest ICO so far is Telegram, 1.7 billion so far. 1.7 billion for the first round is enormous, right? Raising $1 million US in the equity is really hard. Even 1 million is really hard. But it's so easy to actually raise the capital if it's an ICO. That's why people actually moving to an ICO. But there are a lot of actually failures behind this top ranking. So you got to be very careful actually investing in the ICOs. A lot of actually, more than actually 90% of ICOs considered as very dodgy. So it's really risky. So I'm going to explain the legal regulations for ICOs. This is in Japan. So in Japan, meaning, what's the definition in Japan? You have an office in Japan, or you have a company registration in Japan? No. You provide a service to the Japanese residents. That's the definitions. You have to think about the Japanese law. Although your company is registered in the Hong Kong, if you provide a service to Japanese residents without an office in Japan or whatever, you have to actually follow the Japanese law. So it's same as a virtual currencies exchange. No matter where that is, just Japanese residents. Or if you have an office in Japan, if you don't provide a service to Japanese residents, people don't care. So laws are applicable by each commodity. Japan does not have the specific law for the ICO at this moment, obviously. For the ICOs under the virtual currencies law, most likely most of the ICOs falls under the virtual currencies law in Japan. Not all ICO tokens are considered as virtual currencies. And then some coins issued by ICOs are not legally recognized as virtual currencies. So you have to actually talk to the lawyers if you want to do the ICOs to the Japanese residents. And we also categorized the ICOs into the 5. One, fiat currency type, Banking Act, Payment Service Act. If you issue something like a JPY type, you have the license of the banking, which is really, really difficult, obviously. You can't really issue the fiat currencies like Japanese banking bill. Only a Bank of Japan is allowed to issue, as you may know. Usually, people don't issue the fiat currency type. Maybe Tether is considered as a fiat currency. Number 2, virtual currencies type needs to actually follow the Virtual Currencies Act. This is the majority of the ICO, I think. The dividend type, obviously, it falls down the Financial Instruments and the Exchanges Act. This is a securities license, which could be difficult to get. If you actually pay the dividend in the fiat currency, this actually may fall down to the dividend type. And the e-money is very easy. We have in Japan, we have the e-money, like a Suica, Pasmo. You need to deposit of the currency if you want to issue the e-money. So if the ICO or token or virtual currency actually falls down looking like the e-money, you have to get this license. And no rewards, no law applied, meaning it's a giveaway. It's a donation. So if you just give the token, if you just give the money and the receiving tokens, that doesn't represent anything. You don't need a license. But what's the benefit for the investors actually to buy those? No benefit, but it's a donation. So this is totally fine if you want to donate money. We've been working with some study group so that we can actually do the ICO without any problem. The major problem in this ICO area is obviously consumer protection. Without that, I don't think the FSA will allow to do the ICOs. So we've been actually discussing with some experts, with the major banks, accountants, lawyers, how we actually categorize and how we protect the consumers. What's the category in the technology of the blockchain, and spending a lot of time to make the rule. And the last slide is the biggest actually problem for the ICOs. It's taxed. The problem of the ICOs is considered of sales. Almost about 30% of their sales will be taxed. The issuance of the ICO is not issuance of an asset, but it's considered sales. So to avoid that, you have to have some obligation to have the liability. So you have an asset, and you have liability, then it should be actually considered, it should not considered as a sales, but still, a lot of actually experts says it will be denied in the tax purpose. So the biggest problem is tax. And if that structure is considered as a virtual currencies, there's an actually consumption tax on the top of the 30%. But if it's not a virtual currencies, you may have to actually pay extra 8% on the sales of the ICOs. So 30% and 8%. This is a lot. So now, I've been actually talking with a lot of the use cases about the blockchain, our technology. Original technology maybe, there's a lot of future for the blockchain. There's a lot of actually still concerns by the regulations, but at this moment we have a lot of actually possibility for the new technology of the blockchain and ICOs. So hopefully we can do something new in the regulations and the new technology, and then we can help each other to look forward to the new futures. And then this is my end of the presentation. Thank you very much for the listening.